Bills Mafia, drop whatever you're doing right now, because there is a trade bombshell rocking the NFL, and it comes with a connection to Buffalo that almost feels too perfect to be a coincidence. Two-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle Vita Vea has officially requested a trade from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And before you scroll past this thinking it has nothing to do with your Buffalo Bills, buckle up, because this story is about to get very, very interesting. Here's the wild piece of history most casual fans don't even remember. Back in 2018, the Buffalo Bills traded up from the 12th overall pick to the 7th overall pick in a deal with Tampa Bay. Why did they do that? To go get their franchise quarterback, Josh Allen. In that same trade, the Buccaneers moved back down to pick number 12, and with that very selection, guess who they took? Vita Vea, along with a couple of bonus second-round picks thrown in for good measure. It was one of those rare trades that actually worked out beautifully for both sides. Buffalo got their franchise quarterback. Tampa got a defensive cornerstone who would go on to help them win a Super Bowl. And now, 8 years later, there's a real, tangible chance those two paths could cross again, and this time Vea could be wearing red, white, and blue instead of pewter and red. So let's back up and explain exactly what's happening in Tampa Bay right now, because the situation down there is genuinely messy. Vea is entering the final year of a 4-year, $71 million contract that he originally signed back in 2022. He's set to earn $17 million in base salary this season, with another $1 million available in incentives, and, critically, there is no guaranteed money remaining on that deal. Extension talks between his camp and the Buccaneers have completely stalled. And things got tense enough that Vea actually showed up to Tampa's mandatory minicamp last month, but refused to participate. That's about as clear a signal as a player can send. He wants a new deal, or he wants a new home. And here's the thing, when you actually look at the numbers, it becomes pretty obvious why Vea feels disrespected. He currently ranks as just the 19th highest paid defensive tackle in the entire NFL by average salary per year. 19th, and I don't think there's a single serious football analyst out there who would argue that there are 19 defensive tackles in this league who are actually better than Vita Vea. That gap between his production and his paycheck is exactly why this trade request happened. So let's talk about that production, because this isn't some declining veteran limping toward retirement. This man is still an absolute problem for opposing offensive lines. Courtesy of Next Gen Stats, in the 2025 season alone, Vea faced 241 double teams, the second most in the entire league. Despite constantly getting doubled, he still generated 14 pressures on the quarterback specifically after being double-teamed, the 6th highest total in football, and racked up 40 total pressures on the season, the 9th most among all defensive tackles league-wide. But here's the stat that should really get Bills fans fired up. When aligned in the 0-1 or 2 technique, meaning lined up directly over the center or the guards, the toughest spot on the field to generate pressure from, Vea and Seattle's Byron Murphy tied for the most quarterback pressures in the entire NFL from those alignments, with 33 apiece. No other player in football had more than 22. Let that sink in. At 31 years old, Vita Vea was statistically the most disruptive interior pass rusher in professional football last season. He is not just a run-stuffing space eater, he's a legitimate, certified game wrecker. Now, why in the world would Tampa Bay even consider letting a player like this walk out the door? Because, folks, things are falling apart around him. Star linebacker Lavonte David retired this offseason after years of anchoring that defense. Franchise wide receiver Mike Evans is completely gone, signed away in free agency by the San Francisco 49ers. Quarterback Baker Mayfield's own contract extension talks reportedly aren't anywhere close to a resolution, and Mayfield has publicly stated he won't even engage in negotiations once training camp begins. Add in a head coach who many analysts consider uninspiring, and an offense that's on its 3rd different coordinator in as many years after losing its previous play caller to a division rival. And you've got a franchise that suddenly looks a lot shakier than anyone expected heading into a pivotal season. Vea watching all of that unfold around him while his own contract situation sits unresolved. It's not hard to understand why he wants out. So now the real question. What would it actually cost to bring him to Buffalo, and can the Bills even afford it? Let's start with the trade package. Naturally, everyone's mind jumps to the recent Dexter Lawrence trade, where the New York Giants shipped their star-nosed tackle to the Cincinnati Bengals for the 10th overall pick in the draft. But hold on, that comparison doesn't quite hold up, and here's why. Dexter Lawrence is 3 full years younger than Vea. According to a league executive who spoke with ESPN's Ben Solak, a realistic starting point for a Vea trade package looks more like a second-round pick and a fifth-round pick, not anywhere close to a top 10 selection. Now, Tampa might also want a player coming back the other way in addition to draft compensation, given how badly they'll need immediate depth up front if they move on from Vea. Something like a second-round pick plus a young defensive lineman could realistically get a deal across the finish line. Then there's the extension question, because whoever trades for Vea is also signing up to pay him. Let's look at recent comparable deals to get a feel for the market. Jeffrey Simmons, arguably the best defensive tackle in football. Just signed for $35 million a year at age 28, that's the ceiling. Dexter Lawrence himself makes $28 million a year at the same age. Jordan Davis of the Eagles, just 26 years old, recently signed for $26 million annually. Based on those numbers, the realistic projection for a new Vea contract lands somewhere around $25 million per year, likely structured as a 3-year deal worth roughly $75 million, with something close to $50 million guaranteed. Can Buffalo actually make the math work? Right now, the Bills have roughly $10 million in available cap space, which obviously isn't enough on its own. But there's a lever the front office has used before, a Dion Dawkins contract restructure, which could free up around $11 million in immediate space. That gets Buffalo enough room to onboard Vea's current salary this season, and then the new extension itself would actually create additional functional cap space moving forward. Bottom line, it's not a question of whether the Bills can make this work financially. It's a question of whether they're willing to commit the resources. Now let's address the obvious concern hovering over this entire conversation, his age. Vea turned 31 back in February, and that number alone makes some fans nervous about tying up big money in a long-term deal. But history actually offers some encouraging parallels here. Big-bodied, dominant interior defensive linemen like Haloti Ngata, Vince Wilfork, and Casey Hampton all remained excellent, productive players well into their mid-30s, with Wilfork and Hampton both playing until age 35. Yes, there are cautionary tales too, guys like Star Lotulelei and Dontari Poe, who fell off a cliff after age 29 due to injuries. But Vea has already proven he can still dominate at age 30, which puts him firmly in that first, more encouraging category. And with the league trending toward bigger personnel groupings and more condensed offensive formations, his exact skill set as a massive, disruptive interior force isn't going anywhere anytime soon. This is a player who realistically has 2 to 3 more genuinely impactful seasons left in the tank, if not more. So should Buffalo actually pull the trigger? Here's the case for why they absolutely should. The Bills' defensive line has been the single biggest question mark on this entire roster heading into the season, recently graded as bottom 10 in the league in a comprehensive roster evaluation. Adding a player of Vea's caliber doesn't just fill a hole, it transforms the entire unit. According to that same grading system, adding Vea would instantly jump Buffalo's defensive line ranking from 23rd in the league all the way up to 10th. That's a massive swing from one single acquisition. And the ripple effects go even further. With Vea commanding double teams on the interior, it frees up Ed Oliver and Deon Walker to operate in more advantageous one-on-one situations. Deion Walker, in particular, thrives when he's not forced to anchor against double teams as an undersized nose tackle. Get him out of that role and let him play in wider alignments where his athleticism shines, and suddenly this defensive line looks completely different. Even the linebacker core benefits, since a dominant force up front like Vea makes life significantly easier for players like Terrell Bernard trying to navigate traffic at the second level. There's also a bigger picture argument here about urgency. General Manager Brandon Beane has faced legitimate criticism in recent years for sitting on the sidelines during major trade opportunities, watching players like Myles Garrett and Dexter Lawrence get moved elsewhere, missing out on marquee free agents. With Josh Allen firmly in his prime and this championship window wide open, this is exactly the kind of aggressive move that could define this era of Bills football. A second-round pick, a mid-round selection, and a hefty contract extension is a real cost, no doubt about it. But pair that investment with the aggressive trade Buffalo already made for DJ Moore, and a clear pattern starts to emerge. A front office finally willing to spend draft capital and money to build the best possible roster around their franchise quarterback. Of course, Buffalo isn't the only team that could be circling here. Reports suggest Vea has expressed a preference for playing on the West Coast or for the Las Vegas Raiders, given his history with former teammate Tom Brady and Raiders general manager John Spytek, who spent years in the Tampa front office. The Los Angeles Chargers also check nearly every box, ample cap space and a clear need at the position. And don't sleep on a surprising dark horse in the New England Patriots, who have real cap flexibility and a glaring hole at nose tackle themselves. It's a crowded market, and Buffalo will need to move fast and move aggressively if they want to win this race. At the end of the day, this is one of those rare situations where a genuinely elite talent becomes available specifically because his current team is dealing with organizational turmoil. Those opportunities don't come around often, and they rarely last long once they do. The connection to Buffalo's own draft history makes this feel almost like fate. The same trade that brought Josh Allen to Buffalo could, in a strange twist 8 years later, also bring back the very player Tampa selected with Buffalo's old pick. It's the kind of storyline you simply can't script. So Bills Mafia, the ball is in Brandon Beane's court now. Does he make the aggressive move that could turn this defense from a question mark into a genuine strength? Or does history repeat itself with Buffalo watching from the sidelines while another team scoops up an impact player? Let us know in the comments below. Are you in favor of the Bills going all in on a Vita Vea trade? Even if it means giving up real draft capital and committing serious money to a 31-year-old? Drop your trade package predictions down below. We want to hear them. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to Buffalo Focus so you never miss a single update as this story develops, and turn on notifications because if this trade happens, you know we'll be the first ones breaking it down for you. Go Bills, and we'll see you in the next one.